Okay, welcome everybody. Hopefully we'll have a better connection today. I am at home. I don't know why my clinic had bad connection. We did send out an email yesterday to let you know the reason why we didn't actually send out an email with a recap is because the recording was buffered, and I guess many of you didn't hear what I was saying. And so really from my heart, I apologize. Know that you can always ask me questions. I'm here for you, and I'm just so excited that you're actually embarking on this journey to really remove sugar from your diet. It's interesting because I had a meeting right before this, and the speaker got up and was talking about the importance of removing sugar, finding a way that works for you as an individual to actually step into your life and for your health and wellness. So it's all about like ditching the diets, ditching the restrictive mentality, and showing up for you as an individual that makes sense for you. I really want that to hit home because these behavior changes are 100% for you. And when you figure out what works for you, then you're going to be on such a better trajectory for yourself. And it just really makes a huge difference in your journey of health. As you create these small habits for yourself, it makes sense that, the changes that you're making are not the changes that your sister's making, that your brother's making, that your best friend is making. It's ways for you to heal. So once we release that restrictive mentality and that diet mentality, this individual was actually a movie star that was just talking, and she also just spoke on the Today Show, and she was saying how much she realized that she was teaching her children that she was restrictive dieting and not even knowing it because mom would never eat pizza. So this is never an all or nothing scenario. And like that brings tears to my eyes because as you get healthy, you figure out what works best for you. So I just want to welcome everybody, to another day of sugar detox, and just realize like the more that you show up for yourself and have accountability, that's what we all need, right? Like it's just the support from individuals that have gone before you and can really in your vision, like hold your hand and carry you through. Because you may have your zone of genius that does really well for you and what you know and what your skill set is and what God put you on this earth to do. For me, this is my passion. And I went to the hospital today and I looked around and I thought, gosh, this is why I know I do what I do, because I want to keep all of you out of the hospital as much as possible. There's a time and a place for it. But every time I walk in those doors and it feels so dramatic with everything going on around, it's really like we get to take care of ourselves so that we can live the best life that we're put on this earth to live. And that's how I start all of these segues into the challenges, because I want you to know it's about you as an individual. So are there any questions before I get started? Because I was cutting in and out yesterday with the label reading and really balancing your macros and what that looks like. Is there any questions that I have from anybody in any of the audience that I can answer before we jump into gut health, which is so, so important today? No. Okay, no questions. All right, so the first thing I had asked you all to do is to think about and write down what you had eaten over the last few days, so that you could think about what that looks like for yourself as we walk through this awareness of what you're eating. So when we think of digestion off the back, we think of like taking a bolus or a piece of food. Sorry, I call it a bolus of food. And we think about chewing that piece of food 10 to 15 times. How many of us just grab food, chew it really quickly, or not even chew it. Like, I know, like, I have a little Maltese and I'll throw him a treat and it's like he doesn't even chew it, he just swallows it. And it just like drives me crazy. It's like, can't you just chew that? Like, really, like, we're meant to chew our food. Then we send it down our esophagus into our stomach. And there's certain enzymatic processes, meaning acid and pepsin and even B12, that creates this kind of breakup of our food, and then it sends it down to the small intestines. And you're like, Dr. Donnie, why are you sharing this with me? I'm sharing this with you because you get to realize how imperative chewing and digestion is for your health. So now you send it to the small intestines, and the small intestines, you get bile from the gallbladder if you still have it. Many of you don't have your gallbladder anymore. And then your pancreas releases enzymes, amylases and proteases and lipases to break up your macros that we talked about yesterday. And then at that point, the small intestine sends the nutrients out for nutrient absorption, right? So if we're swallowing food really quickly, we're not chewing it, then how can we digest it at the stomach level? Then we send it to the small intestines. The small intestines is like, this is foreign. What do I do with it? I'm being extreme here, but that's really what happens. So it's important for you to have really strong stomach acid and really good pancreatic enzymes. So guess what I'm going to talk about next? Stress. So when we're under stress, we talked about this back on Monday, which probably seemed like a long time ago to all of you, that when we're under stress, our body goes into that fight or flight response. When you are stressed out, your body cannot digest, because everything goes to your brain and your cortisol, and it says, I need to run away from my favorite saber-toothed tiger, right? So the other scenario that I have, like many patients will ask me about, they'll say, well, Dr. Donnie, in the morning, if it's a Saturday morning and I'm just hanging out with my family or playing with my pup and just kind of enjoying and a relaxing morning, I'll have a bowel movement, right? Naturopaths need to know, like, how many times a day are you having a stool? Because it's so important. It's getting rid of your waste, or even how many times you're urinating. Well, I think we all know the answer there, because they're relaxed, they've eaten their food, they're in a calm state, and they're not running off to the next thing in time. So their food has the ability to digest itself. Okay. And it has the time to digest. It has the time to get into the colon. It has the time to be relaxed. Whereas these particular individuals that asked me are pretty much leaders and high performers. And they're like getting their kids off to school, getting their husbands off to school, grabbing their food, doing this, doing that, jumping in their car, racing to the office, hoping they're not late. Like right there, I got a little bit of heart palpitation. I don't have anxiety, but it like feels stressful, doesn't it? Well, can you imagine that messaging that you're actually giving to your body during that time? It's stress, right? So that's one of the things that's super key, to have enough stomach acid, to have enough B12, and to actually have enough pancreatic enzymes. So when patients are feeling bloated, I also in my clinic do pulse diagnosis, so I can tell if somebody has low stomach acid or low pancreatic enzymes and their intestines and digestion aren't working well. And I can also feel their bowel pulse. However, if we know that when you're eating and you're bloating, like one of the first go-tos that I may think of for an individual is digestive enzymes. And sometimes it's just stomach acid. How many of you have heartburn? How many struggle when you eat and you have heartburn, or you feel like it's going to come back up after you eat? In the medical world, again, no disrespect to them, I say that all the time because I love them and I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm I'm against that, because I'm not. I needed them today, right? However, it's like, if you don't have enough stomach acid, then you can't digest at the stomach level that we just talked about. What's the first thing the medical world does? They give you an acid blocker. Filipendula is an herb, which is in the purple pill, right? And I think most of you know what the purple pill is called, right? Or you go to Zantac, or back in the day, Tums. All of those they all hit the liver really hard. But we've been taught, like, if you have that indigestion and that heartburn, it's a horrible feeling. Of course, you want to differentiate it. Is it a heart condition or is it just heartburn? So be conscientious there that you're knowing what you're dealing with, because I've had many instances where people feel like it's heartburn is actually a heart condition. So be careful with that. I always try to bring up cautious when I remember and to share with you. So you want to make sure that you're taking stomach acid, actually not suppressing it. And a lot of those antacids actually, cause brain fatigue and cognitive decline. And it's really unfortunate because you're not digesting at the level that you get to digest at. Does everybody get that? Is everybody feeling like that makes sense? I try to be like super detailed because I know that's what I would want to do. So when we're eating at that level and our food is digesting, remember on Monday, and maybe you don't, and it's okay, because that was like a fire hose day that I called it. We talked about the brain, and we talked about the gut is the second brain. If we give the gut what it needs for nutrients, then we can think really well. We can think at a better level. So that's the relationship for the gut and the brain. If we dump sugar and processed foods into our gut, even if we're chewing them well or not, we're putting almost like, I'll call it like garbage and too much sugar in the body into the gut. And then the gut, through the vagus nerve, which is the wandering nerve, it's the largest nerve in the body. Guess what? It has the relaxed state and it has the go state. So that's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Okay. So hence, when you're in a stress state, the vagus nerve is going to run from that saber-toothed tiger, and it's not going to take care of the digestion. It's going to take care of everything. I know it's hard to see, but everything's going to go from, down to your lower belly into your chest here, and it's going to take care of your heart and your pumping so that you can take that stress state and go. So the key to not dumping too many nutrients that are deficient and sugary into the gut is so the gut can communicate with the brain through the neurotransmitters, like we talked about, those mood regulators, your dopamine, your serotonin, those feel good neurotransmitters that keep our emotions balanced and our moods balanced. So in the VIP room the other day, somebody is struggling with candida, and I'll share that because she's concerned, her family's concerned with her moods as she fights off candida. Candida is fungus and it's a die-off. So until we start to flip the metabolism and get less sugar into the gut, the mood and the brain is going to kind of down regulate a little bit to kind of figure out what's going on, because the truth is you don't feel your best, but your body has figured out how to run that way. Does that make sense? So when we have a gut infection or something's actually going on in the body, it can something is going on in the gut, an infection or a parasite or whatnot, it's going to affect our brain. So that is the impact of sugar on the brain and the mood and our mental health. And it can have short-term and long-term effects. How many are with me? Are we all getting this? Is it all making sense? Okay, cool. I'm so used to so many questions, but I guess I don't have a lot of questions. So when we're looking at the impact of long-term and short-term effects, the brief overview is this. So if we look at dopamine, when we're consuming sugar triggers the release of dopamine, when we're consuming sugars. And dopamine is related to your pleasure. I can't talk today. Your pleasure and your reward system. This can create a sense of euphoria and reinforce the body that it needs more sugar. And that's where we can get the addictive behavior. Okay. So, sugar consumption can imbalance neurotransmitters and really disrupt your mood. And that's the dopamine and serotonin. And again, that is your mood, your energy levels, and your overall mental well being. It can also, on a third level, affect your brain, your cognition, right? So, high sugar intake has 100% been studied and researched and linked to cognitive dysfunction, reducing memory, reducing the ability to learn. What about all of our ADHD children out there? Bless their hearts. It's all that sugar garbage, and even in the school systems that they're dumping into them, the hot lunches and stuff. I'm sorry, but they're not clean, they're not quality, and they're not giving children the ability to really function because it's like garbage food. So that reduces their focus. I mean, I'm working with a little boy right now who's doing amazing. And you know what his specialist teacher said? I'm sorry, I don't remember all the terminologies of it, but she said, your medicine is not working. And so he came to me a couple weeks ago and he said, Dr. Donahue, my teacher said my medicine's not working. And I said, you need to tell her you're not on any medicine. He's not on any medicine. He's on essential fatty acids. He's working really hard to stop sugar. He's working really hard to stop being addicted to video games because that's another sense of elation for these children. And he's working on getting outside and moving his body and finding a sport that he loves because he's a kid that, quite frankly, has struggled in his body. So why would a teacher ever tell him that his medicine's not working? He's not on medicine. I'm trying to flip the switch the other way around for him. And that's really where accountability comes in. How many of you need accountability? Like we all do, right? I know I do. Even though I'm a doctor, I have plenty of people around me who support me. I have my own naturopath. And that's so important for us, right? And these children just feel helpless. They really do. And it's just really sad. I think ADHD has been really built out of us burning adrenals out, conceiving children, and then now they have no wherewithal because now they're getting dumped with all this sugar and all this processed foods. And, you know, here, Jack, take this to school or just run with this. Or, yeah, you want an ice cream? Sure. Reward. Like, where in our country did we teach the reward system of food? Right? How about let's take you to the park and skateboard if you're a little boy, or if you're a little girl, let's take you to get your feet done. I don't know. Let's go for a walk on the beach. It always had to be around food, and celebration in our country is all around food. Certainly, we do the same thing as a family, but there's a time and a place to be balanced. So anyway, off my soapbox opera there, but it's really important to be aware of what's going into the gut. So what happens to the gut? What truly happens to the gut? What happens to the gut is that a diet high in sugar can disrupt the microbiome, which is actually the beneficial bacteria in the gut. It becomes harmful when there's too much sugar in there. And then you get an overgrowth of bacteria. This imbalance that we talk about, like in our language, is called dysbiosis. And that's just a fancy terminology for a gut microbiome imbalance. And we talked about on Monday, a way to keep it healthy is to eat really quality foods. So many people just want to start taking a probiotic or a prebiotic right away. And, pre is the big thing, pro, post, the reality is we can get that in foods. And the other piece is, if you are having gut issues, probiotic right away might not be my first choice for you. So once the gut microbiome becomes imbalanced, there becomes a nutrient absorption challenge, and then our gut health gets thrown off. It's that simple, but it's actually quite debilitating if you lose your focus, if you lose your memory, if you have ADHD or cramping. And, quite honestly, most of the bloating I see at the clinic is like soon as I start to get, like, I do colon hydrotherapy at the clinic, but as soon as I get the bowels going, people off sugar, they just feel less bloated. And that might not even be like a symptom that you experience, but as you heal, you'll be like, oh, like kind of like in that area where I felt heavier, like those fat cells were there grabbing the sugar, like in our abdominal areas, for example, as females, or around our thighs. And that is most likely related to sugar intake and hormones, right? But sugar, this is where we're talking about sugar here. So am I talking too fast, or is everybody getting it? Okay, good, Jacqueline. You're getting it. You're getting it. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to keep going with it. So excessive sugar consumption will not surprise you in the gut. It's going to increase your inflammation. The gut is meant to reabsorb certain nutrients and bile and vitamin E and things to keep going, right? So if you have all this inflammation in the gut, then this can contribute to your digestive issues, or like joint pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain, knee pain. And as you start to come off those sugars, like, what is joint pain? In our world, it's called arthritis. Itis means inflammation of a particular area in your body. Diverticulitis is inflammation of the diverticulum of the colon. Arthritis is inflammation of a particular joint. So just means inflammation, but just can cause a tremendous amount of pain for individuals who are having joint pain. And if we pull that inflammation down and we get quality fats into our system, then our joint pain can actually almost go away. And bloating and gas and discomfort can actually be taken care of as well. The last piece with the gut that I want to talk about is increased permeability. What does that mean, Dr. Donnie? That means high sugar intake can increase the permeability of the gut. The gut is not meant to have what we call open gap junctions. When they start, there's a little bit of opening, but when they start to get inflamed and get opened up too wide, then that's where we're actually talking about leaky gut syndrome. So those of you that may be listening that have been diagnosed with leaky gut syndrome, that's what begins to happen. And then toxins and undigested food particles can then pass through our intestinal lining and get into the bloodstream. And then that can trigger an immune response and then further inflammation, because once it's in the bloodstream, well, you've got immunity in the gut as well, but you're going to trigger an inflammatory and immune response once it hits the gut. So it's important to note that you as an individual are going to be affected differently on the amount of sugar you're eating, and it's going to be based on the amount of sugar that you're eating, and it can vary with excessive sugar intake. Like, your symptoms can vary. But what I will tell you is, you start to decrease it, you're going to know what symptoms go away and what was related to sugar. So we really, in order to, optimize our brain and our gut health, we want to, again, where I'm harping on is adopting a balance of food that is low in added sugars and supports a healthy brain gut connection. So what would it look like for all of us to like be supported on this and just keep going, right? Like, that's my goal for you. So when you think of like removing sugar from your diet or eliminating it, how can you do that? Like, what does that look like? Because I'm sure you've been all thinking, okay, like, what is this all leading up to? How can I set a clear goal? How can removing sugar, look like for you as an individual? So the first thing I want to say is, you want to think about what sugars are coming into your nutrition, what starches are coming in, and what can you really truly do without, right? So, and the longer you start to remove the sugars from your diet, the better off you're going to feel. So, I think when I did sugar detox years ago, I just started removing sugar slowly. And then over time, I was like, okay, maybe it was 6 months or 9 months or so. And then I started looking at like, oh, I can have a piece of chocolate. Oh, I can have a little bit of a carb. But before I knew it, I was addicted again. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to stop sugar again. So then I would stop it for another 3 to 6 months. And that probably went on for a couple of years. And I finally was like, okay, I just know myself that I don't do well with sugar. But I took it in a stepwise fashion. And then eventually I just honestly got rid of it. I'm not saying that's what you all need to do to feel your best. That's what made me feel my best and really helped me set a clear goal. But I want you to think about like each week here on out, like, and having accountability for me, which would, certainly, work. Like who wouldn't want that? Like, what is your preference and what is your health goal? I guess that's really what I want to say. Like, where do you want to go and where do you want to be on the other side? And how much are you willing to commit to make that happen for yourself to feel your best? So we talked about food labels yesterday, and I just want to make sure that we really talked about reading food labels that would make sure that we have more protein and fat and not, spike our sugar. Today, I want you to think about when you're reading a label, if you can't pronounce something, your body probably can't digest it, right? And then you might want to write this down. I'm going to do a list of sugars because there were lots of questions yesterday and I was stumbling over it, but I want to just really clearly give you the sugars that are often on labels. And I'm going to tell you a secret. I don't know them all because they keep changing. So it used to say high fructose corn syrup. Now it says HFCS. And sometimes it says corn syrup. So I don't know, but if you see anything that says syrup, you might think that it's from corn. Corn is extremely hard to digest. I don't do anything with corn. Another one is sucrose, sucralose, glucose, dextrose. And then in the VIP yesterday, we went over all the sugar alcohols, the maltitol, the sorbitol, the xylitol. So the sugar alcohols, just so you know, they don't spike your blood sugar, but they might not make you feel very good. So they're not something that's going to spike your blood sugar. So that's why you're often going to see them in like healthier, like protein bars and things of what we call healthier, because they're going to keep your protein levels, in good check, if that makes sense. So think about where are your sugary foods coming in from. I'm doing this in a stepwise fashion and start to think about where can you remove them. So it could be beverages. It could be even like yogurts, like have high sugar in them. I always say if you do okay with yogurt, just buy plain yogurt with no sugar, unsweetened yogurt, and put your own fruits and things in it. It could be candies, cookies, sweetened snacks, processed foods. So what you want to do is here's the switch that we talked about. You want to think about eliminating sugary foods and start to think of like, what are my fruit? What are my vegetables? What are my lean proteins? What are my quality fats and whole grains? That's what's going to keep your hunger, energy, and cravings in check. So as you eliminate the sugar, you're going to start to fill in with whole foods. And I'm going to be honest with you, you're going to be hungry. You're 100% going to be hungry. Like it just happens because your body has gotten used to living on on sugar. So focusing on whole foods is 100% key. And as you're cutting out the added sugars, know that fruits have sugars in them too. So be aware of the amounts you're eating, because what may happen is, say you ate, I'm going to do an extreme here. Like, say you ate like 3 Oreo cookies all the time, but then you go and you eat a banana. Even though a banana is healthy, it might, I haven't done the math, but it might have close to the same amount of sugar in it. So you're just trading out one sugar for another sugar. This is healthier, but the body doesn't know the difference except the Oreo. There's definitely parts of the Oreo that the body probably can't digest very well. And I'm just talking regular Oreo. I'm not talking a fancy, natural, organic, healthy Oreo. I'm just talking about Oreos, right? With the creamy mint filling sensation, right? Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I think there's hydrogenated palm oil in there, but it's been a long time since I looked at the label. But your body can't digest that, but it's still sugar for sugar. So think about, okay, like, if I'm going to get rid of these cookies, even if they're healthy and quality, think about, okay, I'm going to add in these blueberries. So switching and being mindful of where your natural sugars are coming in, you want to aim for a balanced intake and focus on whole unprocessed sources. So hopefully that's making sense. This is like a no-brainer, but I'm going to bring it up. You want to stay hydrated. You want to drink plenty of water, because water, like I talked about on Monday, your thirst mechanism and your hunger mechanism are so close in the brain that sometimes the brain can't differentiate. Are you hungry or are you really thirsty? And we go first to hunger because we're feeling hungry. So I know this is like an old Weight Watchers trick, and it's an old trick for any of like the food plans that you've been on, like drink a glass of water to make sure that you're not hungry first and see if it's thirst. It is a trick, but it does definitely work. And many patients do it, many patients. The other way that you can start to remove sugary foods, like we talked about yesterday, is meal planning. Plan your meals and snacks in advance so that when you come in the door from work or from like a ball game with your children or whatever you're running in the door from, you're not ravenous and you're going to grab sugary foods. So when hunger strikes, it's really hard for you to have willpower at that point. I want you to hear that. Like, when hunger comes on, you probably, I don't like the word fail, but you'll probably trip yourself up because your hunger is going to be more powerful than your willpower. And that is actually researched. That's 100% research. So we did the healthy alternatives. If you have a sweet tooth, really think about what can you swap out one for the other. The other 3 pieces are adequate sleep. Like, prioritize your sleep. Those patients that don't prioritize their sleep 100% struggle with hunger, energy, and cravings. Because when their energy drops because they can't make it through the day and they're trying to push through the day, what are they going to grab for? Probably a simple starch or sugary food to get them through the day. That's literally what's going to happen. And if you're 100% stressed out, you're probably not stopping to eat, or you're rushing really quickly to eat, and you're not digesting well, like we talked about in the very beginning. And so you might not make right choices, or you just like start getting all these sugar cravings because you don't have the energy, you don't have the sleep, and then the chronic stress is just overbearing. So not only do you want to keep your hunger, energy, and cravings in check, you want to keep your stress and your sleep in check. Because when you sleep, you heal. And I don't know where in this society it became okay to live on 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And if you're grieving, take time to grieve. Take time to grieve. It's short term, but nurture yourself, love yourself, connect with yourself. It's all a part of your being. And when we started this on Monday, and even today, every day I start this, I say, what works for you? And that's what's key for all of you to hear. Like, let's figure out what works for you. Um, the last thing I want to talk about, which I'm going to dive in deeper to tomorrow, just so you kind of know what's coming up and, we keep going, is seeking support, and accountability. I've had so many people reach out to me lately that really want 100% support. And so I've really thought a lot about it, and I have truly, which we will talk about tomorrow. I'm happy to pop it up today, but I started a new program that I'm launching for all of you, and it's having your doctor in your pocket. It's getting messages from me, having like a monthly connection call with me and me supporting you so you can ask questions, because so many people are just flailing out there. And I thought, how can I support you all? Like, who wouldn't want support? I know I do. Like, I reach out to my mentors for support all the time, even when I trip up. So, I created this program called joinpocketdoc.com. I'll put the links in for you, but it's like 100% accountability and me messaging you and giving you mindset and the 4 pillars of health, because as you change, you need that support to change, and you get to have that support for yourself. And finding a support group to keep you motivated and accountable, like, this is why I think we've been getting all these DMs and messages about it. And I was like, let's create something for all of you. Maybe you don't have the time or the ability to work one-on-one or work in the wellness connection programs, or even the people that have bought my programs, they go through them and then they're like, now what? Right. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail. I'll drop it in the, I will drop it in the messaging here for you guys to take a peek at it, joinpocketdoc.com, and I'll go over it with my VIP members. But it's just my way of supporting all of you, because that's what you want. So if you find a support group, or even like, hey, grab a friend, bring a friend, right? Like, I do a lot of challenges where I'm like, bring your friend to the challenge, so that you can all go through this together, because I don't know where we got out of health is so important. Finding that support group to stay motivated and accountable, whether it's your husband or your best friend or your sister or your brother, or I don't know what it is, or knowing that somebody, like, how many times I remember when I first started this journey and people would come to me and be like, you're so good with food. You're so good with this. And, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm really just eating well and just loving life. Like, it was that simple, but it felt so difficult because we haven't talked about it like that. We haven't talked about that kind of accountability, because you're each different. Like, how many times do I hear that? You're each different. You are unique. You have your unique genetics. You have your unique story. You have what God put you on this earth for. Like, all of that is so important for you. And until you figure out and you listen and you create these behavior changes and you create a way of living for you, that's when you're going to be successful. It's not from restrictive dieting. It's not from like living a life of not abundant and not getting up every day and getting outside in nature. It's finding what works for you. And lastly, I'm going to close with, it's so important for you to listen to your body. Listen to your body. So if you begin to start the sugar detox, and hopefully many of you have, because I've been bringing awareness and connection and community, this is what we all need right now. We can talk post-pandemic or whatever, but we need each other. This is how we love and we connect. And our mind can take us out of the game. But if you are focusing on how you're feeling, how you're showing up for yourself, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and as you start to take sugar out of your diet, people are going to look at you and be like, wow, you look great. Like your skin's going to clear up. Your energy is going to be brighter. Your emotions are going to be brighter. You're going to be pulling inflammation out of your body. Like to me, that's anti-aging. And the time that you sit down and really eat your foods and take time to eat your foods, that's what's important. Track your food. Somebody just popped in and said, I love my Fitness Pal. Like find an app that you enjoy. If you join, Pocket Doc with us, the way that you can bring those questions and listen to the messages that will hold you accountable. It doesn't matter what you use. What matters is that it works for you. That's what matters. I can't say that enough. Like, I wouldn't be where I was if I didn't take this time back when I was like 18 and I kept searching and digging. I remember at 7 when my mom said, you're getting your tonsils out. I'm like, no, I'm not. I was 7. I didn't know better, but I knew that God gave them to me for a reason. And she was not having any surgeon rip tonsils out of my neck. I didn't even know where they were. I didn't know what they did. But I said, nobody's taking a knife to my body. And she's like, but honey, you'll feel better. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'll deal with my swimmer's ear. And to this day, when people see me, they're like, oh my gosh, you still have your tonsils? But know that tonsils can grow back. I want to make that clear. But yeah, I do. And I also did not choose to take a pill for an ill. And you don't have to either. There might be a time for supplements. There might be a time for that, but there's all sorts of ways. There's homeopathics, there's drainage medicine. There's ways to balance your terrain and remove these substances that are causing imbalance in your body. I'm going to stop now. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, I just get into it because I love what I do and I want all of you to be healthy. I want all of you to have like the life that you dream of, the vision that you want, and just really be who you're meant to be. Again, what is your vision? I asked you that on Monday. What are you stepping into? Because your vision for health is just as important as your vision for your life or your vision for your retirement or your vision for your kids or, what is your vision? Any questions? Gosh, you guys don't ask me a lot of questions. VIP does, but I guess I do a great job. I know I keep saying that, but I'm so used to like questions and I'm like trying to bear them through. But for some reason, I guess I'm doing a great job in really being clear and, concise. So I'll close now and I'm going to jump over to the VIP if nobody has any questions. Oils and sugar. What's your question around oils and sugar? There's a question on Facebook. Do you have a specific question cooking oil. What oils work best for cooking? I did go over that, but I will go over that again because I do go quick. I didn't go over it today, just FYI. So, or maybe I did it on VIP. I'm sorry. I'm getting you all of you messed up, but I'm here. Okay, ready? So cooking oil. What is a really good oil to cook with? I would say not canola oil. I would say grapeseed oil, sunflower oil, and if you do okay with coconut oil. And avocado oil is another one. If you're looking for kind of a buttery sort of saute, I would use ghee. This question always blows me away because I think to myself, what are we using oils to cook with? Because I don't really cook with oils. But I know maybe you guys are doing stir fries and things with it. I'm not really sure. So those would be my choices for oils because you want to remember that, sunflower oil. You want to remember that olive oil at high temperatures is a carcinogen. And I always blow patients away when I tell them that. Like olive oil is amazing, and it's quality and it's healthy and it's a great nutrient rich product, and especially organic and extra virgin olive oil. But when you use that, just make sure you're not heating it. So I'm never saying don't eat these oils. I'm saying just don't heat them. Hopefully that answered that question. Any other burning questions from Instagram or Facebook or YouTube? Are we all good to go? And remember, tomorrow I'm going to actually talk about building a supportive network. And if anybody has any questions on, Pocket Doc, I put it together for you. It's joinpocketdoc.com. I created it for all of you that were like really wanting more support, in a different light, and not having to show up weekly. So if there's any questions about it, you can go to joinpocketdoc.com, reach out to myself or my team, and we're happy to support you. Literally with all my heart, thanks for showing up and realizing how important your health really is and taking like 45 minutes out of your life to connect with me. I truly honor your time, and I know you're going that extra mile. So I'm sending you so much love, light, and joy, and have an amazing evening. Or if you're on the West Coast, have an amazing rest of your afternoon. And I will be with all of you tomorrow. Supportive community. We'll talk to you guys all soon.